Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce Mark Barrow, who is a Senior Solution Consultant with SOLIDWORKS, and this morning he'll be taking you through Accelerate Product Design with Cloud-Based Collaboration. Enjoy. Over to you, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's presentation. So what we're going to look at this morning is I'm going to tell you a story about a company called Icon. So Icon is a manufacturer of off-road wheelchairs, and their founder is dedicated to wilderness mobility and creating adaptive equipment for people with disabilities to help them get outside and get out into the great outdoors. So in the words of Icon, they're changing lives through innovation and technology. So the story we're going to look at this morning is all about the redesign of this suspension system. And I'm going to tell it through the day-to-day tasks of 4 different characters. So over the course of the story, you're going to see how cloud-based and connected collaboration tools on the 3D Experience platform are accessible from any device and can speed up the process of getting a product to design and market fast. So let's take a look at the team then. So the team we're going to be focusing on are 4 individuals who aren't much different really from many of you in attendance this morning. And what the team are going to be doing, their mission, well, that's to redefine this prototype design of the Icon Explore off-road wheelchair and prepare it for mass production. So let's take a look at the team in a bit more detail then. So Pete's the product manager and the project leader. So just like many of us, he wears multiple hats or trying to stay focused on pulling together resources to get the job done. Then we've got Don, who's the creative CAD designer who never shies away from the complex industrial design and surfacing challenges. He's your typical SolidWorks engineer, using SolidWorks most days of the week. And then we've got Debbie. So Debbie's your more traditional CAD designer, and she has a background in mechanical engineering, but she's also responsible for creating all of Icon's technical publications. And then we've got Adam finally. So Adam's the analyst. So what team is complete without an engineering analyst? So Adam uses the most current analysis tools out there to get his job done. So that's the team. So let's have a look at how Icon's highly collaborative product design environment works. So it all starts with Pete doing his product manager duties like researching the market and analysing feedback from prototype product testers. So then he stores all of that information in a singular location, making it easier to access and easier to stay on top of and easy to share all of the information with other people in the team. So from all the data he collects, he then formulates a project plan for new products and manages updates to the existing ones. And then he does all of that by scheduling tasks and assigning them to his design team. So both Debbie and Don use design and documentation tools to get their jobs done, SolidWorks. But as all of that's happening, it's constantly being validated by the analyst Adam. So he's having to work with their design iterations as those changes are made. So as the changes are made, it's important for everyone to be kept up to date with those changes and keeping track of the history and not stepping on each other's toes. So making sure everybody's got the right version of the right documents at the right time. So all of that data that's being created will need to be stored in a centralized location so everybody at Icon can access what they need to stay productive. And of course, while all of this is going on, Pete also needs to stay up to date on product design progress, but he's not a designer, so he'll need to be able to easily access CAD data in a very simple, viewable format. So it all sounds pretty simple when you say it, but as you step back a bit and take a look, it can look a little bit overwhelming when you lay it all out in a flow diagram, and it gets even more confusing if you're using a bunch of disconnected applications to manage all of these responsibilities. So let's take a look at how easy all of this can be if we were to use one unified solution to communicate, collaborate, to get the design jobs done. So the team at Icon are working on a new product, the Icon Explore wheelchair, and it's Pete's responsibility to work with some early prototype testers to see where and how the new product can be even better before its release. So he's going to need to gather some information, organize it, and then begin to distribute it to his team. So Pete starts off his day every day in a dashboard on his web browser, which allows him to monitor what's most important to him so he can get his job done. And one tab on his dashboard is dedicated to a collaborative design community where he can keep track of his team's progress as they approach the completion of his particular wheelchair design. So this is where Don, Debbie and Adam collaborate on the progress of their designs. So Pete wants to know where the team is at on the design, so he'll simply just go ahead and search for it in his dashboard. So he can quickly find the top level wheelchair design that the team's been working on. So finding the correct data is the first step, but Pete needs to also be able to view the 3D data in order to fully understand how the team has progressed on the current design. So to do that, he can simply just drag and drop the top level assembly into the viewer right from within his web browser. So it's important to understand that all of this that we're watching here is browser based. We're using any software that's installed locally on the machine. So he drags and drops it into his viewer. He can take a look at it. So he's happy that the prototype looks good. So now Pete can return to the design community in order to provide his feedback and inform the team that they should proceed with the manufacturing of a dozen prototypes in order to conduct some market research with some early testers and then get some feedback from those testers. So Pete has a separate feedback community where he can communicate directly with the prototype testers outside of his organization. So if we fast forward a few months, the group of early prototype testers have received their Icon Explorer and have provided some valuable feedback and some ideas of possible design changes and enhancements to make the Icon Explorer even better with the next version. So Pete can filter that community just on the ideas provided by the testers. And in addition, he can view the ideas pipeline that provides an overall view of all the ideas that the prototype testers came up with. This pipeline view allows Peter to graphically show the early adopters which ideas the design team at Icon are reviewing under development or ideas that have already been implemented in the next iteration. So this is a great way of capturing your kind of design ideas as you work through a series of iterations, and you can always come back to this at any time. So another way to also elicit valuable feedback is to conduct a survey, and you can do that right from within inside the community. So Pete's going to do it for his prototype testers. So Pete asked them which characteristics of the wheelchair design should be their biggest concern, such as stability, mobility and comfort. Once the survey is complete, Pete can then export the results so he can dive into the data. So if we move over to Pete's Research tab in his dashboard, he can view a collection of useful windows that provide information relevant to his company's focus, which of course is, in this example, is disabled athletes. Over on the top left of the page is displaying the results of the survey that he just conducted with the prototype testers, so he can easily see that weight is the biggest concern, as well as rider comfort. So it's a great way of being able to capture and view metrics that you might be tracking on any particular topic. So what Pete does, he shares his findings with his team and he publishes this graph to the design community. So adding a quick title and description to the image is all Pete needs to inform the design team of the next phase of the project. So Pete shares his findings with the team and publishes the graph to the design community. So adding a quick title and description, now you can see now that in the design community, all of the team can view that and comment on it. So we saw how Pete was able to get up to speed with the latest 3D model of the Icon Explorer, conduct some market research with external prototype testers, and then provide that feedback directly to his design team. And that's all done in one cloud-connected environment. So let's take a look now at how Pete can generate a project plan. So now he's got an understanding of how to improve the wheelchair design. It's a great time to kick off a new project based on all that feedback from the testers. So more precisely, the weight and comfort concerns. Keeping the team to a timeline as well as ensuring that everything gets done is Pete's next task. So let's return to Pete's dashboard. So what he's going to do is go into his projects tab, and he's going to create a new project focusing on the lighting and comfort of the Icon wheelchair. So adding images, a title and a description to the project allow it to stand out from the collection of other projects that Pete's working on. And projects can be broken up by a summary, task, schedule, members and content. So what Pete's going to do first is he'll go ahead and add the members of the project. So Debbie, Don, Adam. So we can literally just type in, we can give people different permissions on the project as well as he does that. So then moving over to the schedule, he can then zoom in, look at the calendar, and then he's going to start by adding a milestone for the project. So Pete's a fan of working backwards from the goal. So for this project, the goal is to share the final design with the early testers. So once that date's set, he can now create the tasks needed to reach it. So removing unnecessary material is the first task that needs to be completed, and that one will probably take the longest. So we'll set the duration to 5 days. So once that task has been created, additional details can be added, such as who's responsible. So for this one, Pete's going to assign the entire team to the task and make sure they're fully aware of what to lighten. And also what's really important here is you can also attach the Icon wheelchair assembly directly to the task, so the users haven't got to go searching for anything when they receive that task. So then Pete will assign each member with more individual tasks so they can all go ahead and work in parallel. So first of all, Debbie's going to need to create some marketing material. So she's going to be using SOLIDWORKS Composer and Visualize to do that. Pete's going to need to remember to review and approve the design changes. And then Don's also going to address the rider comfort if they get time at the end of the project. So Pete's going to add a new task for Don. And while all of this is taking place, all of these iterations are being worked through, Adam needs to validate the design to make sure it's safe and obviously not fail in the field. So once all these tasks are in there, some of these tasks have to happen before others can be even started. So since most of these tasks rely on other tasks to complete, Pete can simply drag and drop the dependencies of the tasks on the Gantt chart. So it's really easy for him to just get all the tasks in there and then just lay out the order, play around the dependencies in the order. So that's really going to help him stay on top of the project and get it planned out really quick. So now the project's been defined and the tasks have been distributed, Pete's confident that the team is all going to be working on the same page and working towards the same goal. So assigning all of those tasks to the team members will fire off notifications, so there's never any confusion on what they need to work on. So let's take a look at what Adam's been doing, or what Adam sees to start with. So Adam's dashboard is a little different to Pete's, since his responsibilities center around accessing data, collaborating in communities, and of course tracking his to-do list. So Pete had assigned 2 tasks to Adam, so he's the primary owner of validating to ensure safety and part of a group to remove unnecessary material. So when it comes to removing the unnecessary material, Adam's got some ideas that he wants to convey to Don, the lead CAD designer. So commenting on the task and mentioning Don ensures that Don will be notified of the comment. Adam believes the front suspension has been over-engineered, which may be a good place for Don to begin lightening the design. Then after commenting on that task, he'll now take ownership of the safety validation task, just by simply dragging and dropping it into the in progress state. So the project planning tool is a really simple tool to use, and it makes it accessible for everybody that you're working with, everybody that's a member of the team. And since it's all done in a web browser, it means that you can do this, on a mobile device. You don't have to be, tied to your workstation at your desk. It could be engineers that are working out in the field, viewing the project plan and viewing their tasks. So how are you managing projects like this? A lot of us all rely on email, and sometimes we can get a little bit overloaded. So being able to comment this way and notify people within this dashboard environment is a great way to collaborate and really cut down the confusion that sometimes we all have with so many emails flying around. So it's a great way of getting everybody on the same page. So everything Adam and Peter have done up to this point has been done through a web browser. So it's all stored on the cloud and can be referred back to at any point. So let's take a look at what Don's going to be doing. So Don's been assigned some tasks, as we've seen. So he's going to be utilizing SOLIDWORKS to make the design changes. So Don's dashboard is pretty similar to Adam's, but while he's viewing the assembly, he sees a notification pop up from Adam. So those are Adam's comments from the task that you saw a few moments ago. And then just by clicking on the notification itself, launches the remove unnecessary material task and brings him directly to the comments area to see what Adam's written. So replying to the comment, Don is now ready to take action on the task. So we can just simply drag it to in progress to kick off that task. The next, Don's going to be using SOLIDWORKS to make the design changes, so we'll launch it directly from his dashboard. So moving over to SOLIDWORKS, there's a unique task pane in SOLIDWORKS that's going to allow Don to directly connect all of his cloud-connected data. So right from within the SOLIDWORKS task pane, Don will search for the front suspension assembly that Adam mentioned. So you can see there's quite a few search results there. So Don can easily narrow down the search results just by using the filters. There's a whole host of different filters we can use to narrow down those search results and get to what he wants really quickly. He can also look at different information on the design, so various attribute information. It could be the revision, the life cycle state, the design, any custom property information that we might have on those SOLIDWORKS files. So it's very easy for Don just to view all of that information before he even opens the assembly. He can also look at what that assembly is related to before he opens it, such as the children of the design, and also importantly, where this design is used. So Don can make sure that that front suspension is not used in a whole host of different wheelchair assemblies. So he's safe in the knowledge that if he opens this one up and makes a change to it, he's not going to be affecting potentially other designs that he doesn't want to. Also, before opening it, we could even preview it. So make sure we've got the right design before we actually open it up in SOLIDWORKS. So he's confident in the knowledge that he can make changes without affecting any other wheelchair models. So Don's going to go ahead and open it. So that will now download a local copy to his local working area on his workstation. So the task pane now shows the structure of the assembly, as well as whether Don or not is working on the latest or greatest revision. So Don can also quickly determine if anyone else has ownership of any of these models. So Don decides to take ownership of the control arms and the top level front suspension assembly. So he's effectively going to check these out and lock them out to him so no one else can work on them. So he does that by simply reserving those parts. So now we're going to make some quick modifications. So we're just going to show every single step there, but we've just unsuppressed some features to simulate modeling of the lightning holes on those suspension components. So now the task pane highlights those changes that have been made. So Don can clearly see as he's been working away in his session which parts he's modified. So Don's completed the design changes, but currently only he can see those changes. They're just in his local session. So making sure everyone has access to the latest changes is obviously imperative for great design collaboration. So let's go back to SOLIDWORKS. So Don selects the top level assembly and decides to save his changes back to the cloud. So during the save process, Don has the opportunity to create new revisions. So he could overwrite the current version and overwrite revision A. But in this case, he wants to create a revision B, so we keep revision A as it was. So he's going to go ahead and select the parts that he wants to up-revise. And then when he goes ahead and saves it now, once that save operation is completed, the session now reflects the new revisions as well as the release of ownership. So he chose to release ownership as he created those new revisions as well. So in addition to making new revisions of those parts, Don also wants to change their maturity or life cycle state. So what Don's going to do here is move it from in work to frozen. So that's our intermediate state, the Icon design team's workflow before it's approved and released. So this is like a pending review state. So it's going to lock these out so nobody else can take ownership and modify them before they've been reviewed. So all of these changes can be done right from within SOLIDWORKS, and those changes will be instantaneously updated and viewable on the cloud. Now, besides being the access point to his design data, the SOLIDWORKS task pane can also be the gateway to other important apps that Don requires, for example, his tasks. So this goes a little bit beyond the traditional PDM view that some of you might be familiar with. So in an identical view to the one he has on his dashboard, Don has the ability to select his task and then move it to the done column. So he can do a lot of his day-to-day work inside the SOLIDWORKS task pane and doesn't have to reopen his web browser to access things like his tasks, maybe even view the project plan as he's part of the project team. So the task pane really becomes a one-stop shop for everything that Don needs to get done. So now Don's completed the design change. So he's stored all the data in the cloud for all to access, and he's gone ahead and completed the task that Pete assigned to him. So one last step would be to communicate all of this to the rest of the design team. So returning back to his browser, back in Don's dashboard, Don drags the updated front suspension, his revision B, into the viewer from his stored favorites area. So inside the viewer, Don would like to create an image to share. So Don here, he could take measurements, maybe section it, hide parts. But what he's going to do in this example is add some markup to the design. So Don could be doing this again. He could be either at his desk or he could be out and about using a tablet. It's browser based. You could be using an iPad or an Android tablet even to do this. So Don wants to emphasize the changes, so he's utilizing some of the markup tools, as you can see there. Not only that, he can also add some callouts as he's doing it. So he's calculated how much less the front suspension now weighs, so he's going to add that as a metric, as a callout as well. And now he's ready to share it with the rest of the team. So he captures an image and shares it with the design community. So we can, straight from the viewer, we can just create a screenshot, one button click, and then share that as a post with the rest of the community. So it's a great way, again, of just being able to communicate design intent and design ideas that you've got and sharing it with the rest of your team, or with people external to your business even. So moments later, in the design community, a notification pops up that Pete's commented on the post. So Pete's congratulated Don on the job well done, and as you can see there, he's mentioned Adam and Debbie. So they're going to receive a notification as well, which will be a reminder for them to proceed with their tasks. So let's move over to Debbie. So what's Debbie been doing while all this is going on? Well, Debbie starts inside SOLIDWORKS, and she's been working on the latest top-level Icon Explorer design from the cloud. So she can update her local session with that new revision B of the front suspension assembly. So it's very easy for her just to update her design and pull up the latest version and update the local version that she was working on. So let's fast forward a bit. So Debbie's finished her marketing content. So from her dashboard, she's ready to share her new marketing material. So to start, she'll create a new favorites folder to ease in, to make it much easier to search for the content. And once that folder's created, she simply drag and drops the deliverables from her local hard drive. So this is straight from a Windows Explorer folder straight into her dashboard, where it can now be shared with the rest of the team. Now, so far we've looked at viewing just SOLIDWORKS models within the dashboard, but see, browser-based viewing needs to support all types of formats. So Debbie just drags the PDF into the viewer, so she can now view that PDF, and she's going to share one of the images that she's created with the rest of the team. So in the same way that Don shared a snapshot of the SOLIDWORKS design, Debbie's just going to create snapshot of part of the PDF, one of the images she wants to share, and she's going to share that directly with the rest of the design. And then finally, what she's going to do is drag her marketing images task straight over to done. And then once she's done that, what she's going to do is edit the task and her renderings in a deliverables area so everybody can view it. So that means when Pete looks at this finished task, he's got everything he needs within that task to review it and sign it off. So again, it really cuts down all of that having to search in different environments and disconnected tools. Everything is all in one place, making it really easy for everybody to find. So Debbie's completed the one task that was assigned to her, and she's kept the team, as we've seen, up to date with her progress. So the last part, obviously a lot's been going on there as we've worked through the story of that design change. So let's check in with Pete for the last part to see see how he gets up to date with everything. So back in Pete's dashboard, the team has shared their favorites with Pete. So these bookmark folders that the team have been creating have been shared with Pete, so he can really, quickly move between all of the different deliverables from those shared folders, whether it be the SOLIDWORKS design or maybe the simulation results from Adam, also the marketing images that Debbie shared as well. So he doesn't have to go searching for any of this. He can just hook up with the favorites folders that the team has shared with him, and he can really quickly review all of the objectives of the design task. So Pete's pretty excited about what Debbie's put together, and he can't wait to show it to the early prototype testers. So again, like the other team members did, he's going to create a quick screen grab from the viewer, but this time he's going to share it with the prototype testers. So not only can you share these captures with your own design communities internally, but you can also share them with external stakeholders if you've opened up your communities beyond your company. So as he was doing that, Don's completed his task about addressing rider comfort. So jumping to the project view, Pete might want to get an idea of how the project's progressing, so he can graphically see which tasks have been completed. So the ones in grey versus the one that still need to be done in blue. And he can quickly see that the project is progressing on schedule and nearing completion. So all that's left for him to do is to approve all of the changes. So Pete might want to look at Don's seat cushion that he was doing while Debbie was finishing off her marketing material. So since that's the last step before he approves all of the changes, he finds the new seat cushion in Don's completed tasks, and he drag and drops it directly from the tasks to his shared deliverables folder. So again, he's got all of those deliverables to hand that he can view really quickly. So returning to his viewing area, Pete can take a quick look at the new seat cushion design and get a good feel for what Don's been working on, in addition to the front suspension. So of course he's pretty happy with what he sees. So he also creates a quick post and shares the new cushion design with the feedback customer community for them to take a look at. So finally, at this point, Pete's ready to complete the task that he assigned to himself, and he's ready to approve the changes. So Pete, as we mentioned right at the beginning, he's not just a project manager, but he's also responsible for signing off the designs at the end, but he's not a SOLIDWORKS user. But using his dashboard, he can set the icon design to released. So he can also move the SOLIDWORKS designs through their workflow states, but he can do it all from within his browser-based dashboard. So he moves those designs onto released. So a fantastic way of being able to collaborate with the rest of the team. So Pete's completed the project on time. He's feeling really good about himself, and they've successfully redesigned the icon front suspension. So that brings us to the conclusion of our design story. So as you've all seen this morning, these 4 users were able to communicate both internally and externally and create a project rich with tasks. They were able to utilize various engineering tools, and all the while working from the cloud in a browser-based environment. And since they were using SOLIDWORKS cloud and lifecycle management tools, they were able to stay informed at all times, regardless of which device they may have been working from.